Hi betting experts, with just a month now to go before the Cheltenham Festival 2024, we're going to take a look at the 14 Grade 1 races over the 4 days that we've got. Obviously, running plans for some of these races are fluid, but just taking a look at the early markets, hopefully I found a bit of value and identified some winners for us all to get stuck into. We start off on the Tuesday and we're going to go through them in time order. There's 4 Grade 1s on Tuesday, starting with the Supreme Novice at 1:30. Now we've seen a market springer here in Ballyburn, who was really impressive at the Dublin Racing Festival. He did have the run of the race there. That's my only slight negative quibble about the form, but he's a strong galloper. He's quick and readily clear to win with plenty of hand, and he looks the Willie Mullins first string. But I think the value lies with Mystical Power, who'll hopefully be allowed to take his chance in this race. The Irish always dominate this contest, and I think there's going to be no exception this time around. The English horses, to be honest, look stones inferior, particularly in this division, and Willie Mullins in particular has got such a strong hand. Now this 5-year-old looked really smart to me, unbeaten over hurdles so far, landing hefty market support on each occasion. Obviously the McManus colours often associated with hefty market gambles, and this one has landed really strong cash. Now the thing with Mystical Power, where I think there's improvement to come, is in his jumping. He did make a few errors when quickening up smartly to land the Grade 2 Moscow Flyer at Punchestown in January, but I suspect they'll have worked on that at home, and I just think he might have a bit more speed than Ballyburn, who's been tried over 2 mile 4 already. The Arkle at 2:10, over 2 miles. Well, this has suddenly got a wide open look. Marine Nationale had looked a real banker when making a winning chasing debut. Obviously the winner of the 2023 Supreme Novice, under a confident ride, looking a real chaser in the making on that occasion, and straight over fences on his seasonal debut at Leopardstown over Christmas. I thought he jumped perfectly soundly. The odd novice error, some people quibbled. He was very weak in the market at the Dublin Racing Festival. He looked like being about 5-2 on. He ended up nearly 5-4 on the exchanges, and I thought he got a very negative ride, and his jumping lacked fluency as a result. They didn't try to lead on him. They were patient, and he kept losing half lengths up the inside without any great activity from the jockey. I wouldn't read too much into that defeat. The bookmakers have. He's gone from about a 6-4 on chance out to 11-4, and I think 11-4 is a price well worth taking. There's holes in all of his rivals at the minute, and I think Marine Nationale, you'll see him in a different light from the front at the festival. Hopefully all is well and he gets back on track. Barry Connell, an excellent trainer. The 3:30, the Champion Hurdler Grade 1, well, I think this is going to cut up. We're a month away now. I don't think there's going to be more than 4 or 5 runners. I think Constitution Hill is an absolutely different parish to all of his rivals. I'm not telling you anything clever there. He's 3-1 on. I think it's a fair enough price. He's all at 8 starts so far over fences, jumping superbly, cruising home. He had his sighter in the Christmas hurdle as usual. De Boinville back in the saddle. He ought to win barring accidents. Just from a betting point of view, a month before the festival, if you can get on State Man each way at 4-1, you're getting 4-5 in finishing in the first 3. Well, it's not impossible. There's only 3 runners turn up on the day, so that really would be a cracking bet. And obviously, in a tactical small field that this could be, anything can happen. State Man could lead on his own. You've got Nico on the favourite. So from a mathematical point of view, if you've got the sort of account where you can get on each way, State Man, well worth doing that. But Constitution Hill, my selection. I think he's different class, to be truthful. The Mare's Hurdle at 4:10. Well, this has got a classy look to it, with Lossiemouth likely to start an odds-on favourite, assuming she doesn't go to the Champion Hurdle. But I think the value again lies with Astro Diamond, and I think playing each way at 4-1 at the moment is a really good bet. She's a tough, progressive, thoroughly likeable mare, a strong traveller. She's only run 7 times over timber. She was pretty impressive on her reappearance at Fairy House in December, where she was 2-3 and then got tired, but that put her spot on for a win at Doncaster in January. I thought she was very taking there, travelling strongly and quickening readily clear in what was quite a hot race over 2 mile 1. As I say, she's proven herself over 2 mile 4, and I think she's a really solid each way alternative for those not looking to take short prices. On to Wednesday, the 4 Grade 1s we've got on Wednesday, starting with the Ballymore at 1:30 over 2 mile 5. Again, I'm looking to Willie Mullins here. I think Il Antique is the one to side with at around about 8-1, although this is a bit of a minefield and running plans are not clear. I think you're getting a fair price about Il Antique, because last time out, beaten by stablemate Reading Tommy Wrong, having been extremely well supported. And I think if you watch that run back, Il Antique was rather free and lit up, disputing a slightly overly strong gallop. Going with zest on the soft ground, but picked off late, having sort of hung left onto that far rail. I suspect you'll see Il Antique in a different light with much more patient tactics in a really difficult race for punters. There's lots of young horses, conflicting form lines, and obviously running plans are going to be up in the air until really close to the day. The 2:10 on Wednesday, the Brown Advisory, a Grade 1 over 3 miles. This race has been blown wide open with the defection of Grangeclare West, who's been ruled out for the season by Willie Mullins. He was my original fancy, but I do think that Monty Starr of Henry de Bromhead is a very interesting runner. He's only had a couple of runs over fences. He's a sound jumper. He's a finder for pressure. He represents an excellent yard who usually managed to find at least one winner at the Cheltenham Festival, with Rachel Blackmore booked for the ride. I like the way he found for pressure in really bad ground over Christmas. He's been laid out for this meeting since. I think 3 miles will really suit him. He's a thorough stayer, completely uncomplicated. He has been rather overlooked in the anti-post market. He's a double figure price at the moment, and I think he should give punters a really good run for their money. The 3:30, the Queen Mother, a brilliant race. I've loved this race every year, but it's got a very uncompetitive look here. I think to keep things simple, El Fabiola is in a completely different parish to these rivals, currently around the 1 to 2 mark. I wouldn't put you off including that in lots of multiples. I can see that price shortening up further because I can't really find a second in. He's already beaten John Bon in the 2023 Arkle here, tanking all over his rivals and quickening readily clear. That looks a mismatch, and John Bon for me took a massive step backwards. I know he nearly fell, but still I didn't like the way he jumped or came off the bridle after the last and curled up. Perhaps the blunder taking a toll, but he was backing off his fences under James Bowen. I appreciate the Bowen was liable to be back in the saddle this afternoon, perhaps, in this big race, but John Bon for me, a horse to oppose, and I can't really find any dangers. It's going to be a small field. Unless El Fabiolo goes on the floor, I think he'll land the odds with a minimum of fuss. And finally on the Wednesday, the bumper, the champion bumper, a Grade 1 over 2 mile one. Well, my betting advice here is don't really have a bet. Token selection, Kish Bank, who I was just taken with first time up, really impressive, and Gordon Elliott has always named Kish Bank as one of his best bumper horses and highly regarded, etc, etc. But just watch this race and watch it 10 times over. You'll see a million winners. The race always works out superbly every year going into the next season. As a punting vehicle, I think you want to be a bookmaker, not a punter, to be truthful. It's quite a sharp, this bumper track. There's often trouble in running and it can turn into a mess, so a race to watch and watch again, but not really a betting proposition. On to Thursday, we've got 3 Grade 1s on Thursday. The Turners at 1:30. Well, Fact to File looks a clear standout contender here. I've really liked him. Willie Mullins, he was a bumper winner, and Willie unusually didn't bother going over hurdles with Fact or File because he's always looked such a natural chaser. He's won twice now at Leopardstown. Last time at the Dublin Racing Festival in February, where it ended up being a mismatch. I think Gaelic Warrior went a miss, but Fact to File jumped brilliantly and had the race won 5 out. I think he's a very smart prospect. Encouragingly, he's run 1 blinding race in the champion bumper on his previous visit over to Cheltenham, so the track should be no issue. The undulation's no problem. He's a slick jumper, and I think he could put these rivals in trouble a long way out. I think he's likely to get in a positive attacking ride. The Ryanair at 250, decimated, of course, by Allaho being out, which is a real shame, but I like Banbridge here. Joseph O'Brien's classy performer. He's often underestimated by the market, and I think a price around 5 to 2 now is extremely fair. He's the clear form pick for me. He's 4 from 6 over fences so far. He returned better than ever at Kempton in January. He's won both of his 2 visits over to Cheltenham previously. I think the one thing I'll say about Banbridge maybe would put you off backing him anti-post is I think he wants pretty decent ground. He handles soft ground, but if it was a real swamp on the day, I'd probably look elsewhere, to be honest, but it's unlikely to be, isn't it? Cheltenham's always good to soft at worst these days, and I think Banbridge is potentially a class above these rivals. The Stayers Hurdle at 3:30. Over 3 miles. Well, Irish Point is the young improver. The Stayers division is desperate for some progressive youngsters. We've had Champ and Dashel Drasher and the horse of Paisley Park of Emma Lavelles in this division for what seems about like the last 10 years. And finally, a young stayer has emerged here, and it's Irish Point. He cruised all over his rivals at Leopardstown at Christmas in a valuable Grade 1. Now, some people have questioned whether he'll get home, whether he's a proper stayer, but the way he goes through his races, as long as he settles, I think he'll do these for pace. Jack Kennedy top-class young rider, going places, knows him really well. And I can see Irish Point doing a barracuda and cruising over these rivals and hopefully seeing things out up the hill. On to the final day, the Friday. There's 3 Grade 1s on Friday, starting with the Triumph. At 1:30, Sergino looks the real deal to me. I think he's going to be another Alti or another Sprinter Sacra. He's every inch a chaser on looks, and he's just so impressive when winning at Cheltenham. In the January meeting, jumping a lot better than he had done on his debut at Kempton when heavily supported. He looked very novice-y that day, but he jumped fluently. He cruised clear of Burdett Road, and I think he'll confirm that form. This is the one race of the week, well, alongside the champion hurdle, I suppose, where I think Nicky Henderson and the UK trainers might be able to have some sort of impact. The rest of the week looks an absolute write-off in these graded races. The Albert Bartlett at 2:50, a Grade 1. This is a minefield, this race. Again, it can leave a mark. It doesn't tend to work out going forwards, but High Class Hero's been very likeable and a bit under the radar. He's still around 8-1, non-runner, no bet. Obviously there's other options for all of these horses over the 4 days, but he's got more improvement to come. I think his jumping could do with improving, but I think the increased test of stamina and slightly slower gallop will help him in that regard. He was only workmanlike at Thurles in January, but I think that was to do with the slow pace masking his superiority in a small field, and his pointing background suggests this step up to 3 miles will definitely suit. The big race of the week, the 3:30, no prizes for originality, but Galopin des Champs is the real deal, around about evens. Maybe a little bit of odds against still about. I don't think there's a second in. The 2023 Gold Cup saw this classy chaser rout a really competitive looking field in style on the bridle, quickening clean away up the hill. His record is 8 wins from 11. He's stripped fitter for his reappearance when routing Grade 1 rivals in the Savills Chase over Christmas, and then made all at the Dublin Racing Festival in what was effectively a match race. None of his rivals have really got a convincing profile. He's done it at Cheltenham. He's ridden expertly by Townend, and I think he'll outclass these rivals. Best of luck wherever you're betting in all the Grade 1s at the Cheltenham Festival, betting experts.